So I was thinking the other day, what if someone came up to me and said, hey Neil, which one is better for me, getting a motorcycle or a fully electric bike like the Talaria or the Sur-Ron? And after owning motorcycles for many years, and after having the Talaria for about 3 or 4 months now, there are definitely pros and cons between the two, so hopefully this video helps you decide which one is best for you. So the first thing I think we should talk about is price. If you're looking to get into the e-bike series, and when I mean e-bike, I'm only talking about Sur-Rons and Talarias, not pedal assisted bikes. Between the two prices, right now Talaria has the Talaria XXX that came out at about $3,000 up to the Talaria Sting R MX4 at about $4,500, which is what I currently have. As for motorcycles go, you can get a motorcycle at pretty much any price range because there's so many different types of motorcycles. You could buy any used little motorcycle for probably as cheap as $1,000 to $2,000 if you wanted to, all the way up to 25, 30 grand if you wanted some really nice high-end European sports bike. I can say in the past, I've definitely had motorcycles that were cheaper than my electric bike, and right now my motorcycle is more expensive than my electric bike. I think majority of people don't really need a high-end motorcycle, so I think the price between a motorcycle and a Talaria or a Sur-Ron is almost even. All right, let's talk purpose and intended use of these bikes. So with a motorcycle, you are restricted to only the roads that you share with other cars. If you are planning to do long road trips or more than normal commutes, anything let's say 10 or 15 or 20 miles long on the daily basis, motorcycle would be your better option. Now, where the Talaria and the Sur-Ron would work out better is if you lived in a bigger city where you don't necessarily need a car to get around, but you don't want to walk all the time. A Talaria or a Sur-Ron would be the best option to get around in. If you're not commuting a lot daily, you could definitely get around with the bike. The other thing that I love so much about the bikes is the places that you're able to go with it. So you can go on the main roads if you really wanted to, you can go on the sidewalks, you can go on trails, you can go through parks, you can go on the beach, you can do whatever you really want with this bike. And just because a Talaria or a Sur-Ron can hold up to 40, 50 miles of range, doesn't mean that's something that you want to do every day. Let's talk about reliability and longevity. I think a motorcycle is going to last longer in terms of just not breaking down as much, getting more miles out of it. The Talaria is fun, but right now I only have about probably 200 miles on it, whereas my motorcycle, I have 14,000 to 15,000 miles on it. I couldn't imagine having that many miles on an electric bike and still having all the stock parts to it. So over the long term, a motorcycle is going to hold up longer, but if you are not planning to put on a lot of miles, maybe you work from home and just want a way to get around, or you live right next to the grocery store or something, you could totally get away with having an electric bike as your only way of commuting. So let's talk maintenance. So between the two, they're actually pretty close to the same. With the Talaria, you still have to do an oil change on it every 3,000 miles with your gearbox. Same with a motorcycle, you've got to do your oil change on it. The motorcycle will have more parts that can go wrong with it, more things that you need to replace over time. But as for lubing the chain, keeping the tires filled up with air, and doing your oil change, if you have the Talaria, then that's pretty much, the maintenance is the same across the board. Now, when it comes to buying parts for it, motorcycle is going to be more expensive. So if something does go wrong with it, you're going to pay more money to get the motorcycle fixed than you would your bike. Replacing a motorcycle tire is going to cost you a lot more than just replacing bike tires. Also, with cost of maintenance, you have fuel. Obviously, with a Talaria and Sur-Ron, you do not pay to fill it up. With a motorcycle, you do. However, motorcycles are usually fairly good on gas, depending on what kind you get. My 300cc was about 80 miles a gallon, whereas my bike now gets about 40 miles to the gallon. And when we're talking cost of ownership through owning a motorcycle, like registering it and insurance, a motorcycle you have to do, at least in the state of Florida, you just have to register it, you don't have to insure it. But most places you have to register and insure your motorcycle, so that's another big cost right there, whereas with the Talaria or a Sur-Ron, if you live in the US, you don't have to do anything with that bike. All right, let's talk convenience and practicality. So between the two, motorcycle and a Talaria or a Sur-Ron, the Talaria and Sur-Ron are gonna be a lot more practical. What I love about these bikes so much much is the fact that they're just like a mountain bike. You can pretty much just walk it out of your garage, hop on it and go. Now with a motorcycle, you can kind of do that, but they're a little bit tougher to move around. They don't have as good of a turning radius. The motorcycle is going to be a little bit bigger, so it's going to be harder to move in and out of your garage or through parking spaces. Still not super tough, but the bike is just so much easier. I'll even park my bike. I park my bike up on the sidewalk or in the bike racks where other people put their bikes. In terms of transporting it places, between a motorcycle and a bike, both are fairly easy to transport. I'm going to say the bike is easier though, because although with a motorcycle you could get ramps if you had a big enough truck and load the bike up into the truck, with the Talaria, all you really need to do is either have a hitch with a motorcycle carrier bike rack on it, or if you have a truck, it'll fit in any size bed. If you have a car and you have a motorcycle, then you gotta get a trailer set up, and it's just a little bit more complicated, whereas with my Talaria, I literally use my Prius to get it places. I put a little hitch on the back, a motorcycle carrier rack, a few tie-down straps, and it's good to go. In terms of the Talaria and Sur-Ron reliability, I haven't had it long enough to really feel how it's gonna stand up. However, the build quality of these bikes is actually really, really good. So I think if you do just take care of it, the aftermarket parts are fairly inexpensive, so if stuff does break, you can easily replace it. Doesn't cost a whole lot of money. The only thing that would cost a lot of money if it needs replacing is your battery pack. So let's talk speed and performance. If you want to strictly go fast and really hit some corners, the motorcycle is going to be your better option. Obviously, they make some crazy sport bikes out there. You can really get whatever you want, whereas with an electric bike, you're capped out about 50 to 60 miles an hour. Now, if you do upgrade your electric bike, I've seen people get them up to 80 to 90 miles an hour. What is nice about the electric bikes is they are electric, of course, so they have instant torque. So they are pretty peppy right off the line, but they do lack in top speed. My personal opinion, I think 50 miles an hour is plenty for an electric bike. And then let's just talk about safety and skill level between the two. With a motorcycle, I feel like there is much more of a risk to riding it because you are sharing the road with other vehicles. I believe that the likelihood of you getting in an accident with another vehicle is higher on a motorcycle than it would be on an electric bike. I'm not saying not to wear your gear when you ride your electric bike, but I would definitely take having gear way more seriously on a motorcycle than a Talaria or a Sur-Ron. Probably 60–70% of my time, I'm using my electric bike at like 15 to 20 miles an hour just to cruise on the sidewalk to get from point A to point B. So I'm not really riding super aggressive. Both a motorcycle and an electric bike are super easy to ride. I think anyone could do it. I'm gonna say the electric bike's a little bit easier to ride because it resembles more of that mountain bike style, which I think more people are used to. I've noticed when people get on motorcycles, they notice how heavy it is. They have a hard time letting their feet touch the ground. And there's definitely a level of discomfort there that takes people a little while to get used to. With the Talaria and Sur-Ron, I think most people can just hop on that bike, throw it in eco mode and get around just fine. I hope you guys got some value out of this video. I hope it helps you make a decision on whether a motorcycle or a Talaria or a Sur-Ron is a better option for you. Honestly, I couldn't decide which was a better option for me, so I bought both of them. I appreciate you guys for watching, and until next week's video, peace.